Good morning, good evening, a very good afternoon to each and every one of you, wherever you are in the world. A very warm welcome to Leadership Insights with Prashant. आप सबको मेरा प्यार भरा नमस्कार. I always like to start my show by saying thank you to each and every one of you who is present on this show now and everyone else who has been on the show so far. It wouldn't have been possible for me to do what I'm doing without your support, without your feedback. So thank you so much for that. Now, continuing our promise, our conversation, our journey about different perspectives of leadership, different aspects of leadership, and getting more aware of what leadership is and what is possible in the domain of leadership, we have another amazing guest here with us today. Now, there is something special about today's conversation. In today's conversation, we're actually talking to a person who is going to take us deeper into the aspects of leadership. We're not just going to talk about leadership from a leadership point of view, we're going to talk about the psychological aspects of leadership, how our mind works and how it should work when it comes to being the best in terms of leadership, and most importantly, when it comes to being an authentic leader. So I wouldn't do much of the talking about it because we have an expert to do that. So I wouldn't want to delay to get her here with us. So let me introduce quickly to you who is going to be with us today. Now, she is a consultant psychologist and a personal growth and transformation coach. She's a founder director of EduConcepts India initiatives, where they work on holistic coaching, transformation coaching, and she also is an internationally certified NLP associate trainer. And not just this, she's been doing this for more than 18 years. Imagine an experience of counseling, training, and mentoring for more than 18 years. What kind of an experience would she bring to us? And she's been doing interventions and trainings where she has been awarded by the National Trainings Council, and she's also been awarded top 40 under 50 business leaders in education by Business Mint. Now, she's a Delhi University mentor for life skills. Now, this, whatever I've told you about her till now, tells us how much she's trying to contribute and how much she's trying to give to the society, and that is amazing. She's also been awarded Cherry Blay Mentor for mentoring entrepreneurs, and she has a decade-long experience in exposure to NLP coaching and personal mastery with middle and senior level management, which means it's not just about psychology. She also has an experience of working with leaders directly. So that is something very interesting. She's also published two books, yes, and they are available on Amazon. They're called Ultimate Handbook of Parenting and Raising Their Parents. So without any further delay, let's welcome our guest with us today, Ms. Praggatti Rao. Hi, Pragati. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Prashant. Thank you so much for such a lovely introduction, and and especially that part where you mentioned about the contribution. That's one of the biggest value I'm living by. So thank you so much for inviting me over, and I'm sure we would be able to contribute even more value to our listeners today.
I'm sure we would, Pragati, and thank you so much for being here. Now, the sole reason or the major driver for me to request you to be the guest on this show was this amazing combination that I saw of someone who is a psychologist, someone who has taken a very holistic perspective to psychology. When you look at your books, you've written books on parenting, look at your experience, you've worked with leaders, look at your experience of working with women entrepreneurs, look at your experience of working with children. This tells me that your perspective or your approach to psychology is not just very niche or a people driven thing. It's it's about value, it's about contribution, it's about making that difference in the world, be it whoever can value from it. So now that is why I wanted you on the show, because I wanted to go deeper into the elements of psychology, and because this show is about leadership, so my primary focus would be leadership. So my first question to you, Pragati, is that when we think of these two terms, psychology and leadership, what is the relevance between these two? And if there is any, can you please share that with us?
A very good question. I totally love the whole idea of integrating leadership with the concept of psychology. So, if I go on to say that leadership is an offshoot of psychology, that won't be an exaggeration at all, Prashant. And why do
Okay.
I say that? Because so let me put leadership in a perspective, especially with respect to psychology here. So, why do I say that? So,
Hmm.
first and the most important thing is leadership for a psychologist is more about taking charge of what you are doing, what you are thinking, and while you are, and what you are talking. So, what you are thinking and what you are talking interact very beautifully and reflect into what you are doing, right? So, it's all about taking charge of your neurology. plus taking charge of your linguistics so that you lead to a very, very cognitive and perceptible change in your actions and behaviors. That's where it is coming from. If I have to give you or build up my case of calling leadership as an offshoot of psychology, my second point would be I feel leadership is also a very strong narrative, right? So what happens is a part of a narrative. There's no real thing happening in the world. Whatever you see, and you make a story out of that, and then you behave accordingly. That's narrative. And if you look at the biological narrative which has been fed into each one of us here, it talks of how we are all um, a result of our genetics. Now look at that. It leaves us so choiceless. It leaves us as if, okay, so I'm preordained to be like this, and this is how it is supposed to be. If that is true, there are enough researches now which have proven that interacting with the environment, our genes undergo a change, which means suddenly we have a choice, which means I can create a narrative which is not that limiting but expansive enough. Expansive where I can choose to be what I want to be, not because of my genes, but because of my active choice. And that's what leadership is all about, having a choice, creating possibilities for yourself. If you look at the other dimension, it's also about shift, how you can shift from being a victim all the time. So this was genetic, whatever narration has been given to us or handed down to us over the years. That was also on a similar line. I am a victim, I am limited by my genetics. But no, nurture plays a very important role, and that is why shifting from a victim over to somebody who can be a creator is another profound beauty of being a leader, and that too in psychological perspective. And last but not the least is going to be the most important element of ability to ask a relevant question.
Hmm.
Ability to ask a relevant question. So which is one question which could be most relevant for somebody who wants to leverage psychology to become a leader? That question would be, Prashant, is my body my next brain? And I'm going to build it up on this is a very beautiful question, because so many times we don't even realize that our gut is where our second brain is. And that gut could be your biology, that gut could be your instinct, it could be your intuition. So all over together, if you look at it, there's such a big biological component to it. How the two cannot be related, I mean, I'm still thinking about it.
Well, that's a very interesting perspective that you shared, Pragati. Now, what I gathered from what you said, and please fill in the points if I missed something. The first point you mentioned was about taking charge. Which means being aware of your actions, being aware of your linguistics is what you mentioned,
Correct.
because all of this play a very important role, especially if you are a leader, if you're somebody who is at a position where there are a lot of people, there are a lot of decisions, there is a lot that is at stake and is dependent on you, then it
Hmm.
becomes even more important for you to be aware of that and be in control of that, and in your words, to take charge of that. The
Correct.
second point that you mentioned after taking charge was, in fact, the third point was about questioning, where you said that questioning plays a very important role, and you mentioned a statement that your body. Can you say that again? Your body
So is the best question that you can ask yourself, is my body my second brain?
is my body my second brain, and you mentioned about the brain being a part of it, or a section of it
Gut,
being
your
in
gut
our
being the
guts.
part of it.
Gut being a part of. Now, that's
Yes,
something interesting which we definitely would want to know more about, and its relevance to leadership. And the second
absolutely.
point that you mentioned after taking charge was that there is a lineage that we talk about, genetics that we talk about, of how things are a part of our system already, where we don't have any say in it, we did not have any choice in it. But having said that, we still have a choice to make changes to it, we still have a choice to take control of what we let grow and what we don't let grow. This reminds me of something that my grandfather, and I'm sure many of our grandfathers would have said this, about the story of that bad wolf and the good wolf that we have inside us, that
Correct.
it's a part of you, and who you feed is what who grows. I don't know if
Correct.
they are relevant. I'm no psychologist, I'm just putting in the common sense into it, but it brings
Psychology is
that
sheer
to my
common
mind.
sense, Prashant. You just said right, because I don't see psychology as a big deal. Psychology definitely makes you more conscious, aware, and wholesome, but it is sheer common sense.
Great. I'm glad we you feel that way, and hope that I and the audience after this conversation also feels that way, and we are able to apply it in our life as common sense. But these three are very important points that you mentioned. A little bit more about if you could speak about taking charge. What did you exactly mean by that? Taking charge of your actions or your linguistics. Just a little more about that, please.
Sure. So if you look at it, there are the three elements which I've highlighted here, which is your thinking. How are you thinking about things? Now look at that. If you look at the entire living system model, that is a model of a human being. There's a reality outside, and by the time that reality reaches my inside, I create an image about that episode being a problem or being a solution, right?
Hmm.
But it's not that simple. Between that
Hmm.
episode and my reality, there are a lot of filtration which is happening. This
Hmm.
filtration happens through my beliefs, through my thinking, through my knowledge, my experience, my exposure, and there are conscious ways of operating which are called my patterns. Like I would delete certain things, I will make faulty connections between certain things which are happening, or I may simply generalize something is like, okay, positive thinking is good. That's a generalization.
Hmm.
Is positive thinking really good? I mean, now these days there are so many talks happening around toxic positivity. If it is
Hmm.
that good, how can toxic as a word be attached to it? So I
Hmm.
definitely, that's for some other day. But what I'm trying to tell you is, we do all this, and then the reality that actually sipped into us is not the same as which was outside. So now you
Hmm.
get that. So there are two
Hmm.
realities. One is the actual reality, and the other is my reality, my map of the world. And all
Right.
of us operate from our maps of the world. What do I
Hmm.
see in my head after all this distortion, deletion, perceptions, and a whole lot of limiting beliefs and everything else that I have kind of accumulated over the years is my map. And then I live my life. I look at people. I look at situations through that map.
Wow. That's that's
Yeah.
that's powerful. That's very powerful. Yeah.
That's very powerful. If you only get to understand the reality, you will try to work on this, intermediary filtering stuff. So you will try to be more building on your perception levels. You will be more perceptual. You would know what are the different levels of perception. Where am I standing right now? Where do I need to go? You would also be becoming more aware of what is a problem thinking and what is a solution thinking. Problem thinking is where you are all the time looking at what is not possible, and solution thinking is all about what is possible. So just now we
Hmm.
talked about genetic thing. So if we look at the background of it, choiceless. We are like, okay, at the
Hmm.
mercy of our genes. And suddenly there are new researches happening which are telling us that, hold on, your nurture has a role to play. So you're not
Hmm.
bound by nature. So looking at that, taking charge basically means just break those myths, those limiting beliefs, make them a little more expansive, and go and look for new territories. Look for
Hmm.
building up whatever resources you have in the form of beliefs, perceptions, exposures, experiences, and values, and whatever else you have on your mind. So that was one area which was I was talking about. Secondly, I was talking about communication. So look at this. Linguistic is one of the essence of human connect. How, and did you know, by the way, that we talk to ourselves also? It's not only, it's not
Hmm.
mad if you talk to yourself. We do it all the
Yeah.
time in a day, and
Yes.
these are all auto suggestions. So anywhere between 400 to 800 times we talk to ourselves. And in that talk, what are we telling ourselves? Is it
Hmm.
possible? Is it achievable? Or no, I don't deserve it. So whatever you're telling yourself actually is your reality. That may or may not be the reality outside. So that's the
Hmm.
second part of it. So you are talking to yourself, you're talking to the world. And when you are talking to them, are you even consciously aware of
Hmm.
how you're talking is impacting the other person? What kind of decisions you take or you don't take because of the talking that you do to yourself? So that's the second area, where you look into. And luckily, psychology has been extremely generous to give us tools, strategies, and methods to revitalize the whole idea of thinking right and communicating right. Now, when you think right and when you use your linguistics right, this is bound to give you a new perception or new
Hmm.
behavior. And we call that as programming, right? As a result of your thinking, taking charge of your thinking, taking charge of how you are expressing, talking, connecting, bonding using linguistics, you actually create new actions and behaviors. And that's what leadership is all about. So, taking charge, I guess it's one of the most overarching theme for today.
Yes, yes, it definitely is. And what you say, as you spoke about the filters, right? That's so beautiful because when I'm listening to you, I'm getting aware of my own filters of how am I taking your information in and what meaning am I giving to the information that you are giving. And I also am getting aware of how I probably do this in every interaction of the show, that I give it my
Wonderful.
own meaning. And I'm getting aware of that now when I'm talking to you. Now, my objective of this show is around leadership, right? So it's Leadership Insights with Prashant, and that's the mission that I'm on. Now, whenever you say anything, my mind has a filter where it's picking up all that information, it's churning it, and it's putting it into the perspective of leadership, saying that, okay, whatever Pragati is saying, इसका leadership point of view क्या बनता है, इसकी effectiveness leadership में क्या बनती है, and it's working parallelly. Now, when I think about what you said about taking charge, Pragati, and you said you spoke about these filters. It also, I can relate it to leadership in a way where a lot of times we make a lot of assumptions about people. Now, if I'm a leader, there are team members who are working with me. I might have 5, 8, 10, 20 people reporting to me. Now, instead of knowing them as people, instead of going deeper and staying patient and going through a journey with them of understanding them as people through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, I believe that much time it would take for you to know the person in and out and build
Hmm.
that connection. It's so easy for us to make perceptions, put them into certain blocks. कि मेरे वो 3 team members जो है ना, they are these kind of people. These 2 team members are self-driven. Those 3 team members need to be pushed. This person will whatever you do वो नहीं सुनेगा. ये लातों का बूथ है, ये बातों से नहीं मानेगा. So we build those perception and those filters even as leaders, and we don't just do it for our team members, we also do it for our superiors. That okay, are you reporting to that middle level manager, are you reporting to that CXO or that CFO? Then he is like this, he likes things like this, he doesn't. So all these things that we get from external sources, go through these filters, and we attach our own meaning to it, right? And I think that's what you're talking about. You're talking about first getting aware that there are these filters, and number two, as you said, psychology has come up with certain tools and techniques to actually neutralize these filters, which means
Absolutely.
where you see things as they are, you see reality as it is. And I think that's very powerful of what you spoke about. If I can actually get to that where A is equal to A, but when it reaches me, A actually becomes equal to B, but it's my reality. Second thing that you spoke about is the part of the that being the part of the genetic structure where we don't have a choice. The term that comes into my mind, which is spoken about a lot from many years, is that leaders are born and not made. There are a
Correct.
lot of debate, competitions, conversations that happen around that, books that are written on it, which actually speak about this mindset or this limiting belief that a lot of people have, that I am not that kind of a person, I'm not a leadership material, I'm not born to be a leader. And this is the myth that needs to be
Correct.
broken, and that's a very powerful thing that you said, कि ऐसा नहीं है. Yes, there might be certain genetic traits that make certain people more favorable towards becoming a leader, but that does not mean people who don't have those traits can't nurture and develop them. And I think that's a point that you brought across from a leadership point of view. And third thing is the control and awareness of your language, your thinking, your actions, and the self talk. जो हम आपस अपने साथ ही बात करते हैं, तो लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स ये लाइक मेरा दिमाग खराब तो नहीं हो रहा है, मैं क्या अपने साथ ही बात कर रहा हूँ. But it's good to know that it's normal, that I'm all right, it's okay to speak to ourselves.
Yeah, there's a technical term to it. We call it auto suggestion, self
Auto
talk.
suggestion.
Only when this starts impacting you in a way where your productivity, efficiency, or your ability to perform day to day functions goes away, that's where it becomes mental noise. So you have to actually know you should have that kind of discretion to understand if I'm talking to myself, is it my mental, so it's like my mental voice or my mental noise. That discretion, people who know that this little discretion are far more, operating on a much more higher levels of leadership.
That must be very powerful. I'm sure since you work with leaders as well, and you are able to bring that change in leaders, it must be very fulfilling to see for you and for your coaches to see that transition. It must be that aha moment, saying that I can see it. I remember going through such processes
Absolutely.
where it seemed like madness in the beginning when I heard, but when I went through it and experienced it, that where I'm telling people that I see my thoughts, and then I play a game where I burn a thought and I let it go. They're like, kya bol raha hai? What, you see a thought, you burn a thought? They're like, ये गया बेचारा, we don't know what
So
he's
that's
going through.
where your biology actually comes into play. You are
Yeah.
looking at it in a very logical way. So you're using your rational mind to analyze it. But there's another
Hmm.
mind, which is the subconscious part of it. You know what?
Hmm.
Most of us focus so much on our conscious mind, but we forget that conscious mind is just the goal setter. Your
Hmm.
goals don't come from there. Your goals come from
Hmm.
something deep within. And that's
Hmm.
why you need the fuel for purpose, of values, of intention, right? And that's
Hmm.
the position where all this goes and kind of acts as a fuel is the subconscious. And that's what paper that you're talking of, it works right there. So while your conscious is the goal setter, you need the power of subconscious to get into the
Hmm.
goal getting format, or it's the goal getter rather.
Very, very well said, Pragati. I'm glad we're talking about this. I already feel
Pleasure.
that the conversation is going to get more deeper going forward because right now you just showed us the trailer. बोलते हैं ना picture तो अभी बाकी है मेरे दोस्त. That's the stage we are at. But before we get into the picture, I'm working on something based on a feedback that I received on comments. So I have
Okay.
made sure that I get into this practice of moving to the comments and then coming back to the guest.
Please.
Otherwise, we lose out on a lot of things that people talk about here.
Yes. Yes.
So first of all, Sujesh says, thank you for inviting us here, Prashant. You're welcome, Sujesh. Thank you for being here. Kuldeep says, hello, everyone. Hello, Kuldeep. Dr.
Hi.
Neeta Mishra says, hello, good morning. Good morning to you as well. Kuldeep says, very auspicious occasion of Gandhi Jayanti. Yes, a very happy Gandhi Jayanti to each and every one of you. He's the father of our nation, a very pride figure for all of us. So, from both of us and from Leadership Insights team, a very happy Gandhi Jayanti to everyone. Prashant and
And
Pragati,
if I may add, Prashant, I wanted
yes,
to
yes,
add the
yes,
line that Gandhiji said, be the change you want to see in the world. And leadership is so much
absolutely,
about being that change. You cannot
absolutely.
be in one comfort zone and think the world will change. It's our time, it's our
Mm,
duty. And thank you for the audience for reminding us, this powerful
yes,
content. Thank you so
yes,
much.
yes, yes, absolutely. Thanks, Kuldeep, for that. Kuldeep says, Prashant and Pragati, amazing combination in this session. Thank you for the encouragement.
Thank you.
Dr. Neeta Mishra says, hello, Pragati. Uh,
Hi.
Divakar Chandra says, well said, Pragati. I think you're referring to our conversation that we already had. Neeta again says, ideally, it's about alignment of what you say and what you feel and what you think. So
Correct.
that's a very powerful thought. Roshni says, wonderful talk about leadership. Kuldeep says, psychological perspective in leadership is really the most important insight. It sure is. Sujit says, hello, everyone. Hi, Sujit. Good morning. All right. We will come back to more comments later. So let's get back to Pragati. So, Pragati, moving forward and taking this conversation a little deeper, and to make the most of our time, it's always good to get to questions which I feel which make things more actionable, where people can take away and start implementing them in their lives to make the best of this time that they spend with us. So, my next question that would be to you is that we know that leadership plays a vital role in growth and success of people and the organizations. Now, this is a known fact, and there are a lot of researches and surveys that are done on it. A Gallup poll found out that 18% of managers demonstrate a high level of talent for managing others. And a shocking 82% of managers aren't very good at leading people. Now, look at that number. 82 is a very, very big number.
It's a big
And
number,
Gallup
yes.
estimates that it's not just about people, it's not just about leadership. That is very important. But people who look at it in a very logical manner, very transactional manner, should also be aware that corporations, the cost that it cost the corporations was about 550 billion annually. Look at the cost that it has. So, as a psychologist and as a coach who has worked with leaders, when you look at these numbers, when you look at the whole authentic leadership dropping or not going where it should be, what are your thoughts on this?
So look at this, Prashant. So if we go by the very traditional definition of organizational leadership, there are two very basic components. One of them is the person who's the leader, and the other is the whole set of people under this leader, which is supposedly the organization, right?
Hmm.
So Gallup talks of how so many people are getting onto a level of a manager, but not being the leader. So
Yeah.
getting onto the level of manager is easy. It's all
Hmm.
about making that switch. Some
Hmm.
people have this whole idea or an internal map that they deserve it, they can do it, and they will just make a switch into that area of applying for that promotion where they end up being a manager. There would be many others who are amazing, who are absolutely fabulous in their work, but they don't believe. So again, I'm coming back to the psychological part of it, the limiting belief. They don't believe that the time is right, or they are ready, or it is worth doing. So there are many, many beliefs that they would have. So keeping all this in mind, they would not even apply for that coveted, promotion. So being a manager is no, I would say this should not be a criteria to take that person as being superior than the downline. And very simple reason being that is something about more about a switch than about being a leader. That's more to
Hmm.
do with having a technical expertise, going on to a program or hopping on to a new leadership program in the country where skills are optimized, other things are optimized, but mindset, I doubt, and that's debatable, right? So
Hmm.
skill upgradation may lead to promotion, may lead to managership. However, mindset upgradation may not be part of this equation. And that is what Gallup is, really bothered about. Because until
Hmm.
you transform your mind, you're not
Hmm.
transforming your results.
Hmm.
It's one thing. Skill is something which is more of a knowledge download. What happens to a skill download? It happens only when you work on yourself. You kind of
Hmm.
actively engage yourself in the process of calming down and thinking what's not working. But a
Hmm.
manager takes immense pride in managing by micromanaging,
Hmm.
not by empowering people. Look at, so there
Hmm.
again, there's a whole lot of people who get intimidated by people in the downline who are superior, who are much more ability, who have that ability to kind of do better, right? And if they are only managing them through micromanaging, through issuing some kind of constructive practices, where is the leader there?
Hmm.
It's only the
Hmm.
manager. So, and
Hmm.
why that is happening? That's happening because that person made the switch of
Hmm.
learning the better skill, of applying for that little, area of promotion. He may or may not have applied for the mindset switch.
Very, again, a very insightful thought, something to reflect on, because I'll share thoughts that are coming in my mind when I hear you.
Please, please.
When we speak about skills, when we speak about knowledge, when we speak about being a manager, it's more transactional in nature. It's more about the
Absolutely.
doing aspect of it. It's more about knowing what to do, knowing how to do, and then telling other people to just go and follow it, right? It
Hmm.
becomes a very mechanical thought process in nature, which means there's
Hmm.
steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have been
Hmm.
hired to do this. Please go do and do these steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Correct.
What you're saying is not happening is the part where people are being worked on their being sector, where people are being
Absolutely.
worked on their inside rather than just doing. Where are you connecting with people as people? Are you just telling them what to do, or are you also understanding them as people and understanding what will work for them? Now that is being a leader. Now, both are very important because business wants results, but people
Hmm.
also need to be extremely driven and happy and focused to get those results. So
Correct.
that's a balance. That's where this $550 billion impact is showing up, right? That if only
Correct.
managers could work things out, then you did not need leaders. You just need managers, and the companies would be thriving, and everybody would be making trillions of dollars. The
Yeah,
reason
because
there is impact
leadership.
is because leadership is important. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So leadership is more about an inside out process. If it is an
Yeah.
inside out process, isn't it important to transform yourself so that you are able to understand the team members much more empathetically? You are able to see
Hmm.
their perceptions, where are they coming from, their motivations, what drives them,
Hmm.
what keeps them
Hmm.
away. And so many times, I mean, just a few minutes back, you were talking about the labels. I think labels can actually be used beautifully well in organizations, so people live up to their labels. If you call somebody a jerk, an underperformer, he will say, okay, so I am an underperformer. Why do I even need to do that extra effort? Right? So he
Hmm.
believes it. He takes it so seriously and to heart that he stops being the performer that he actually can be. Right? So
Hmm.
instead of giving them such limiting labels, how about giving them better labels? Oh,
Hmm.
you're a rock star, you could do this. So imagine that person is now living up to the expectation of a rock star. He's got to be
Hmm.
performing that. So that's the
Hmm.
role of a leader, to find out what channelizes this person. What is that, motivation which will make this person work, rather than kind of micromanaging and other traditional in control mechanics, or politics. A lot of people that I work with are bothered about the whole idea of politics, of how this is something very different on the face of it, but behind there's an undercurrent of great amount of politics, or not, not the environment that they've often wanted. So, and this is not that they'll go and tell their organization or they'll tell their managers, but
Hmm.
within themselves, I personally feel psychologically we have three basic essential human needs. One is the need to be seen, the need to be heard, and most importantly, the need to be acknowledged. Are you as a manager fulfilling even one of them? Even one of
Wow.
them? I doubt that. I
Hmm.
doubt that.
Hmm.
And if you're not doing that, you are simply doing the, as you said, the automatic part of it, rather than kind of connecting, bonding, analyzing, sitting down, taking out time, being with them to understand every member. So I wouldn't say they don't have time. All I would say is, again, there are beliefs around sitting and being. People feel doing is like, oh, I am actually doing something with my life. That doing, how far that doing is giving you the kind of results, that's secondary. And that's very
Hmm.
debatable again. So,
Hmm.
the whole idea of manager engaging in the process of doing, being busy, is it's a pandemic in itself.
Hmm.
We've got to
Hmm.
be stopping that, and we've got to be being for our team, for ourselves, so that we can at least think through how to be a leader.
Hmm.
It's an inside out process, as I said. And if you're not being, and you're only doing, and you're borrowing from the outside, the culture, the society, the trends, you know that you will be another copy of some other leader. You may not be an authentic leader for that matter.
Absolutely. And those three things that you said, the need to be seen, the need to be
Heard
heard, and the
and
need to be
acknowledged.
acknowledged, right? That's
Absolutely.
so powerful. And that's a basic human need, that when we're doing something, is it visible, that do people know, does my leader know that I'm doing this? A lot of times, when I relate back,
Hmm.
as an employee, I think that when I'm doing something, I would want my leader to know that I'm doing this, because I'm doing it because I need to perform better, I need to add more value, yes, but I am also looking to build my career as an individual. So if people don't know, if my leader does not know what I'm doing, then this is not adding value to my growth in the organization.
Or
So that
even
need
if
to
he
be
knows, he
accepted,
doesn't come back and convey it to you.
doesn't
Even if
acknowledge
he
that
knows,
third
he's not
point that
coming
you
and
said.
telling you, good job, yeah, you're a rock star, you can
Yes,
do that. So that
yes,
rock star shouldn't
yes,
be an empty rock star. That label should come from something that the person is able to achieve. So I mean,
absolutely.
that's how labels could actually be good. All this while we've heard labels are self-limiting. Labels actually create the reality for the person that you're labeling. Are you
Yeah,
creating good labels to make them live up to their expectations of a label, or are you just
yeah,
putting them or caging them or limiting them with that label? That's the role
yeah.
of a leader.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned again a very powerful point, that the acknowledgement that you're speaking about cannot be transactional, cannot be false, cannot just be done for the sake of doing it. It needs to be
Correct.
backed with evidence. Otherwise, people won't even respect your acknowledgement. They'll be
Hmm.
like, this leader comes and appreciates for anything and everything. You just raise your hand and he'll be like, wow, what
Correct.
a raise of hand. That is not what we are looking for, right? So it needs to go
Yeah, we
deeper.
have
It
to be
needs
very
to
strategic.
Yes, and people need to earn that. So your people should have that want. When we talk about that need to be acknowledged, they should feel like we have to do something, that he notices this, that he hears about it, and he comes and acknowledges it, right? So it also doesn't have to be flattery. You don't just give labels to people, and you actually, we're not talking about hypocrisy. We're talking about honest
Hmm.
ways of knowing what your people are doing, honest ways of
Absolutely.
putting your people on the path to
Absolutely.
success, so that you have something to acknowledge. You're setting them up for success. That is an idea that we are putting forward, right? And
And by
that's a
giving
beautiful
that good label, you're empowering them. The role of a
absolutely.
leader is to empower others. It's to give the credit to others. Are you doing that?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And this makes, so when I'm talking to a psychologist, the thing that keeps coming into my mind again and again is the mental well-being aspect, right? And whenever I speak to leaders, or I talk to leaders, or I hear leaders, a lot of people feel that moving from a manager to a leader, or becoming a leader, is a lot of work. What they come to realization after a session or two or conversation is that it is a lot of work, yes, in the beginning, but it is also for selfish reasons. You're not just doing it for others. Your life becomes much easier because you are more at peace at being who you are. Your people become more empowered. Your job as a leader becomes much easy. As a manager, it's much tougher job than being a leader. It might be an effort in the beginning for you to transform and shift, but later things become easier for you. Now this brings me to the next question that is running in my mind right now is, now we're talking about this shift, we're talking about people shifting to authentic leadership. Now, as a psychologist, since you work with people across boundaries, be it leaders, be it parents, be it children, so you understand leadership from a very holistic perspective. What do you think when it comes to organizational leadership? What do you think are the top three barriers that you see are stopping people from making this shift to being authentic leaders?
Honestly speaking, over the years, I've realized top three would be very difficult to answer because there are tens of them or hundreds of them which are coming up every single day. In 18 years,
I'm sure.
I've been able to come across more than three. So let me see if
Mm,
I can do justice and tell you
sure.
some. Of course, I'll be looking at three. So the first one has been our organizations and business leaders are obsessed with numbers. So when they are obsessed with numbers and they have something which cannot be quantified, they have all the idea about metrics, yeah, and metrics means what things that can be measured. Leadership, there's a limit to how much you can measure it. There's a limit to how much you can quantify it. And this reminds me the other day when we were talking. So if somebody asks you, do you love your wife? What would you say, Prashant?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now I ask you, okay, how would you quantify it? Give me a matrix for that. You will say, are you crazy? So this is how
Yes.
leadership works. So leadership,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
cannot be, doing everything by the numbers, by the matrix. So number
Mm,
one barrier which I see happening, and especially when I work with this middle and top level management leaders, they are so conditioned into the whole idea of numbers and metrics. They can see that instinctively they know there's a change, they are shifting, things are shifting, but then they come back to, okay, so how can we quantify it? What is the matrix? How do we go about telling it to
mm,
others? So I guess it's so much like a bamboo. It grows within you, as I said, inside out. So it grows within you for longer duration of time till it actually shows up on the surface, and people come and tell you there's something about you that I totally like. Now, what is that something
mm,
about you is because you've taken charge on all those levels which we talked
mm,
initially, thinking or
mm,
the linguistics and the cognition. So when you take charge, it's a process. It's not an event which will happen. Today, I decide to be a leader because if you decide
mm,
to be a leader based on your position, okay, so you're a leader next 1 hour the moment you get your promotion. But if you truly, truly want to be a leader who is genuine, authentic, who is there to empower others, who understands and bonds with others with empathy, who is all about walking their own talk, who could be modeled enough, those are the guys who should know to have patience. And that's the first barrier has to be, because people have lost their patience. People are obsessed with number and matrix. And so even when they can instinctively see that, there something in them tells them, no, there's more, hold on, is it coming from this, is it coming from something else? So they doubt a lot, right? So that's another important barrier that needs to be talked about. I also feel while you're working in an organization, you give gestation period to your projects, to your various assignments, high stake, engagements. But when you work on yourself, you don't even bother to give that gestation time to the whole idea of leadership. Why? Now, that why is because they cannot see it, or some people cannot see it, the big picture. Some people are so obsessed with their own limiting beliefs. Like, for example, people won't get into it because the barrier is right within them. As I said, there's a beautiful principle called paw principle, and that paw principle says, is it possible, is it achievable, am I worthy of that? So if somebody is thinking on those lines, oh, this is not for me, this is for people like XYZ, and they may be his or her own mentors or models, and this person feels like, oh, it's not for me, it's for them. Second,
mm,
achievability. So if you feel this is not achievable, oh, can I actually do that? So if you are kind of asking those kind of restrictive, limiting questions, I don't think you can do it. And most
mm,
importantly, when you're coming from a belief set where you don't feel worthy enough of reaching there, you might get flummoxed by the whole idea of numbers, metrics, not giving gestation period, not believing what you're seeing or instinctively feeling. You do change at a cellular level when you decide to actually pursue the path of leadership. So change doesn't happen in a day. We all know that. Everybody knows change is a process. So it has to start from something like an idea or an intention. From that, it moves to a pre-evaluation stage, to an evaluation state, and finally, you take some action to do it. So even if they've crossed all the three stages and they are now on the action stage, the PAW principle could be a very nagging barrier. And that's the
Hmm.
reason I said take charge of your thinking. Because if you're not thinking right, if you don't believe that there is treasure at the end of me surviving all this discomfort, or pushing my boundaries, or doing a little more so that by the end of it I see a rainbow, you will not do it. You will not
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. And Pragati, for the benefit of our audience,
Yeah.
could you tell us about this PAW principle again? PAW. What is it? So that if there are
Okay,
people
so there
making
are
notes.
basically three elements. P is possible, A means achievable, and W means worthy. Is it possible? Is it achievable? Am I worthy of it? Any
Hmm.
one area where you falter, or you kind of you're shake on a shaky ground, you might not be engaging in the entire process, because sometimes you believe it is not possible, sometimes you believe, oh, it's a big deal, who will get into it, who has the time. So we, as I said, and you also mentioned that, as we keep on doing it, more doing, as we keep on becoming busier by the day, we have stopped being. So being is the area where all this materializes. This is a
Hmm.
place where you have an intention, you have pre-evaluation, you evaluate your options, and then the stage of action actually comes up.
Hmm.
So my whole idea is people have actually, again, so I really want people to be sitting down, doing certain things for themselves, rather than running the whole day and just doing. Being busy is another
Hmm.
barrier, not allowing leadership to be taking roots. uh, I guess this is what is so important. So impatience, numbers, matrix, not believing, or your own limiting mindsets and beliefs. Then the PAW principle, of course, is a very important element, and psychological important element, because as an individual, if I don't believe it, I will not even try for it. Even if you come with the best of resources to give to me, I may have my own assumptions. Why?
Hmm.
What? Do I really need it? Am I good
Hmm.
enough? So are you too
Hmm.
full of themselves? That could also be a barrier.
Hmm.
When we are so full of them ourselves, we don't even look at options. So that
Hmm.
is blind spots. How many of us are aware of what people know and I don't know? So people know a
Hmm.
lot about me and I don't know about that, and I'm not open to a feedback. So I'm stuck in
Hmm.
a blind spot. That's another
Hmm.
barrier to the whole idea of leadership.
Great, great points. You spoke about people getting stuck in numbers where everything needs to be measured. Now, even if it needs to be measured and even if those numbers are important, there is also a lack of patience in terms of, when will you get to see those numbers? When will you get to see that shift? You want it
Correct.
immediately, it won't happen. So there is lack of patience as well. One is getting stuck with numbers, numbers, numbers. Second is, all right, if things need to be measured and they're important, yes, okay, agreed. But you also need to be patient to give the time to that whole journey for those numbers to start showing up, for that shift, the change to start showing up, right? On the scale of measurement.
And
Second point that you,
if I may add there, Prashant, there have been, if I
yes, please go ahead.
may I? Yeah. So if I may add, there have been enough research which are telling us. I'm not saying that don't measure, don't go by numbers. I'm just saying wait a while till it starts showing up at a cellular level. So there are enough, research papers on it. There are enough MRI scans, and there are enough researches now which prove that whatever you do to become a leader, based out of psychology, it does register in your body, in your mind, and a much more cellular level. It becomes visible. So that could
Hmm.
be, for all those number oriented people, this could be a point of solace to wait a while.
Great. And the second point you mentioned was about being busy. That addiction of being busy and feeling that there is momentum, I'm moving forward because things are happening, is where you're focusing so much on doing, doing, doing. It's very easy to fall into the trap
Hmm.
and not realizing that you're actually getting stuck, which means you're only getting good at that one task or one thing that you're doing. And because you are not growing as a leader, your people are also not growing. So you're actually getting everybody stuck in just the fact that if you're busy, you're doing great and you're moving forward. That's where, a lot of organizations I've seen where people work for 9 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, creating a perception of being busy where people are being appreciated that, oh my God, he has no time. He left at 11 in the night and morning 7, he was again here. You need to look at it from a very different point of view, saying that it's not about being busy. It's not about the number of hours that you put there. What is happening in those number of hours? You need to measure, yes, find out the numbers. But as a person, how did you spend those 18, 16 hours? Are you growing as a person? Are you becoming who you need to become for that shift that you're looking to make? And that brings the power principle into place. Do you see that shift possible? Right? Do you actually see that you're worthy enough for that shift? And A stands for achievable.
Achievable.
What is A? Achievable.
Yes.
Do you see it achievable, right?
Achievable. Yeah.
Achievable. So the question that comes into my mind, Pragati, is what you said is definitely very powerful. And now I am when I'm listening to you, just thinking about these things, am I bought into all this? Yes, these things are very important. But it also tells me that, Pragati, there are things that are stopping me. That I don't know what those things are, but I want to be the person that you're talking about. I want to bring that shift within me. I want to bring those changes that you're looking forward to. I want all that. But how do I do that? Now my question is how. Please tell me, Pragati, how do I make that shift? How do I cross these barriers?
So what I just said is a barrier. We just have to do the opposite of that. So we'll have to start working on ourselves. We have to start working on our limiting beliefs. So rather than thinking, is it possible, achievable, or am I worthy? How about, so that's a wrong question. Look at that. It's a wrong question. What is the right question in that case? So questioning yourself actually reaches your subconscious, and there's a whole lot of data points which have accumulated there over the years. So it's a very beautiful point which I've always resonated with, and that says we have all the resources we will ever need to become the person or the people that we want to be. But what is it that is stopping us from kind of tapping into that resources? So number one resource is, so as I said, it's our mind. Okay, so in our mind itself, if I have a limiting belief, there are ways to dropping them. And you won't believe, there are even beliefs available which are almost like a buying a ready-made belief, experimenting on that belief for say a period of 21 days, and then kind of thinking, is it supporting or helping? If not, pick up the other one and kind of do the stuff. Of course, I'm not saying a person can do everything on their own. If you have a professional, they really know the nuances of the work, and they can guide you how you can shift your limiting beliefs into a better belief. That's one. Worthiness. Rather than asking yourself, am I worthy enough? How about asking where I have been worthy enough in my past? So that's a
Mm,
lot of data point again in your body itself, which is stored, where even
mm,
if it is a single opportunity or situation where you've been worthy enough, or you've shown the whole idea of being worthy, it will show up on
mm,
your mind. And then you can go back and think of, okay, so if I'm worthy enough in that time, what will it take to bring that resource into this time?
mm,
So, you're asking just the right questions. So, while you're in a pre evaluation and an evaluation stage of kind of bringing about a change in yourself, that's the kind of questions you ask. You're not asking, why am I not worthy? Because the moment you ask, why am I not worthy, your mind
mm,
again is very resourceful. It will tell
mm,
you all the areas where you have faltered or failed in the past. And then you are doomed.
mm,
Instead, what you can do is you can ask, how can I feel more worthy? How can I
mm,
feel that I can achieve it? Have there been past episodes where I've been able to do it? So look at the question is the lasik of your
mm,
consciousness. If you could put a little bit of laser right there, it'll come out on the surface, and then you may
mm,
skim it and just do it. That's one. Secondly, linguistics. So again, that's such an important area to be consciously aware of how you're talking to yourself, which we again mentioned. Be aware of what are you telling yourself, what are you
mm,
assuming, where are your assumptions coming from, are they helpful enough? If not, what stops you to drop them? So there are a whole
mm,
lot of beautiful questions which you can ask yourself. But to begin with, going to a professional, because it's always helpful. They will teach you the whole models of what is the right question. So it's not always about question. It's about asking the right questions. And we all have
mm,
heard this multiple times. It's not something that I am telling you. This is something there which is available. So, all the
mm,
time we say this is a generation which knows so much, but it
mm.
feels so little. And that's our biggest undoing. We know so much. Morning to evening, with the walk, we are listening to a podcast. Otherwise, we are reading books. Then we are in office meeting, discussions, and whatnot. So the entire day goes into knowing and knowing more. What is that time that you're giving to just kind of feel? Because there are, again, as I said, our body is resourceful. Mind and body are connected. If mind and body are connected, and so that means there have to be a combined resource between the two of them. And that is
Hmm.
where now I bring back my earlier thing which I talked. Nobody knows that until unless your gut is in a very happy healthy space, your mind will not work if your gut is not working. Which
Hmm.
means, just imagine a scenario where you've not been feeling too well in your stomach. Anxiety, when it is anxiety, you're not well in your stomach. Your stomach feels like, butterfly or nausea or things like that. When you're depressed, there's some sinking feeling again in your heart and your gut. What is that? That's nothing. That's the second brain. If you're not doing the micro
Hmm.
elements like taking charge of your health, your sleep, your nutrition, your gut health suffers. The
Hmm.
moment your gut health suffers, your actual brain also goes for a toss. It says bye
Hmm.
bye. So
Hmm.
now look at that. What is happening is our resourcefulness goes away, and
Hmm.
that you have to manage. So you're not going for a walk because the world is going for a walk. You're not basking in the glory of nature because, oh, it's what everybody else is doing. You're not playing golf because suddenly you are a CEO. You're playing golf because you want to be, amidst that nature. You want to imbibe a new skill. You want to feel that whole idea of self concept, a self esteem, right? So that is what is required. You do things which you want to do, not because of your environment, not because that behavior kind of appeals to you, but there has to be a bigger pull to it. And that bigger
Hmm.
pull, what could that be? I want to be that person, identity,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So when I think of an identity level, chances are that I would be sticking to the whole idea of leadership pretty longer, even in times where I feel, oh my God, it's lots. So that even that time, you would stick to the whole idea of leadership because it is coming from the sense of self identity. Then purpose, is it a purposeful engagement? This is something which calls to your the core. So the core head, we have always thought of, okay, so people think head is important. I would say head and heart both are important, and today let's add another dimension: head, heart, and the gut. Head,
Hmm.
heart, and the gut.
Hmm.
These are the three dimensions. So if you really want to be that leader, focus on all three. We are overfeeding the head and we are underfeeding our emotions, which is the heart, as well as the gut, which is the intuition, the instinct, which tells us, okay, I can see change, hold, hang in there for some more time, this will
Hmm.
materialize. So
Hmm.
that's the next way of doing it. How else to overcome? So as I said, behaviors and actions, there's definite pattern to things. Are
Hmm.
you even aware of your patterns? How
Hmm.
things are triggering you? Are you conscious and aware of that? If you're aware of your patterns, your triggers, you will definitely be aware of your actions and behaviors. And you
Hmm.
will take new measures. You will have a different, a mindset of possibility. You will not doubt it. You will move from a doubt to a possibility. So I
Hmm.
guess these are some of the things which everybody should focus on. So knowing won't help you. How about feeling a bit? How about smelling that rose and just being? I know people would say there's lots to be done. So if there's lots to be done, build on your stamina. So stamina is not just physical stamina, which people are definitely doing a good job when it comes to running and cycling and doing a whole lot of exercises. But please do some kind of exercise for your mental muscle as well. And I must tell you, organizations have, they've awakened to the whole idea of mental health. And I'm very happy on those lines. The kind of work I could do in the pandemic for organizations, I'm extremely thrilled. And I must congratulate all the organizational leaders who've been able to organize this. And I want them to kind of make it a sustained activity rather than one off event because it's pandemic. Because
Hmm.
if you really respect the individual who's, part of your organization, right? So whether it's a leader or it's the whole aggregate of the organization, which is an individual. They sit at the helm of it. Please do
Hmm.
something about them. Please make sure that they understand that it's not just my head which is being cherished here. My heart makes equal sense. My gut, my instinct. So many times people just, they can always feel the gut power, the instinctual power, but they don't pay attention to that because we don't value that. We've been told to value facts and figures and data. Let's move and find out new ways, because to get to new ideas of leadership, to be to a new place where leadership abounds, we've got to be doing things little differently.
True, Pragati. And from whatever you said, everything that you said, if I had to underline that, if I had to tell you the emotions that I'm going through, or what is running in my mind, if I had to say that, this one thing can help you overcome those barriers, it is self-reflection. Which means,
Absolutely.
you spoke about what Mr. Gandhi said, that be the change that you want to see in the world. You also spoke about the fact that you need to help yourself. So I would say, if each and every person, in a leadership role, not in a leadership role, if you want your mental well-being to improve, if you want to be at your best in terms of your head, your heart, and your gut, your workout is important. Yes, knowledge is important. Podcasts, books, all that helps you. But if every day, based on whatever you said, Pragati, everything was so self-reflective in nature, which means, we need to understand our patterns. The whole shift of questions. I'd heard this somewhere long back. It said, your questions are your answers. So
Absolutely.
if you ask the question saying that, okay, why am I not worthy? Why is this not possible? Why is this not achievable? Why will I never get there? Why don't I deserve this? Your mind will give you a million reasons from the past, as you said, that it will put all those evidence saying that कि हाँ तेरे से नहीं होने वाला है, तूने ये नहीं किया, ये नहीं किया, ये नहीं किया. 100 things will come forward. But if you shift that question saying that, all right, I'm aware of all that, I know that there are million reasons for things not to work. Let me shift to the ways of it to work and ask myself, okay, what have I done in the past that makes me worthy of this? Or even if there is nothing that comes from the past, what can I do in my present and in my future that I'd become worthy of it? Right? A lot of times, ये भी हो सकता है कि there is no data point in the past that has, that comes out. Maybe, possibly. So we can work on our present and work on our future. So I think essentially you're talking about two things. One, self reflect on every single day. Maybe put 20 minutes or 30 minutes on your calendar every day and self reflect. Just sit. बोलते हैं ना, बस बैठा और सोच रहा है कि मैंने आज किया क्या, what did I do today, what worked, what did not work. And you spoke about aim, you spoke about purpose, you spoke about vision, that what do I look to be, who is that person. The identity is a very strong word that you use of self concept. कि who am I today, who do I wish to be. Who I was
Absolutely.
yesterday does not matter. Who am I today,
Yes.
where do I wish to be, and in this journey that I am looking to take, am I being conscious about it? What did I do today in terms of actions to move towards being that person? What did I do today in terms of my emotions to feel the way that person would feel? What did I do today in terms of my gut instincts to improve my instincts so that I can become that person? So you're talking about head, heart, and gut. So it's
Yes.
very important to self reflect every single day कि मैंने इन तीन चीजों के लिए आज किया क्या, so that I am moving closer. And as I'm talking to you, what I'm thinking is, if I don't have past data points, but if I stay in the present and do this intentionally every day, I am building those data points. Which means अगर मैं एक महीने बाद पूछूंगा अपने आप से, what have I done that I am worthy, everything from this 1 month will start coming up. Right, so I'm
Absolutely.
creating those data points now. I'm probably over speaking, but I'm so charged up with this because this can be so simple and it can be so powerful, saying that forget the past, pull out what you can from the bag. If nothing is there, create a new bag, start today. This is my aim, this is my purpose, this is my head, this is my heart, this is my gut, this is how I am covering all three. And that would be very powerful, is what I feel. What do you say?
I'm listening to you and I'm kind of understanding what did I just say. Because you know what? Leadership is so much about accumulating these data points, creating them on a daily basis, going back to them often so there will often be moments where you feel, oh, it's a tough journey, or
Hmm.
something like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done with
Hmm.
this. But that
Hmm.
those are the dark moments where you need some support. So either you could
Hmm.
leverage the power of a peer group where other people are doing it, and luckily for a lot of areas, you do have people, like-minded people who can come to your rescue. But in
Hmm.
case you are not one of those social people, you may even bank on yourself. And that is what you just said about creating those data points. That's such a valid point. So creating
Hmm.
an emotional stability will be my next important submission here. Now listen to
Hmm.
this. They've been there's a nerve which is actually moving between the head and the gut, and there've been
Hmm.
a complete research done on the vagal nerve. And so there've been Dr. Stephens who's worked on research on the vagal nerve. So this vagal nerve, what this does is it is the communication channel between your gut and your mind, and it also goes to all important organs of your body. So
Okay.
what is now happening is people said your intuition doesn't matter, or intuition again because of matrix. Oh, it's just an intuition. So it's not just an intuition. Your vagal nerve carries your intuition to your head. Your head creates, all the aura of what it's supposed to do in your body, and you can actually charge yourself up to whatever levels and wherever you want to go. Empathy, compassion, perceptual positions, wherever you want to go. This is the beauty of emotional strength. Emotional strength has suddenly become so important. I need not tell my audience or you how, in the recent times, people who had low emotional strength could only, they could they couldn't do that well that they're supposed to do. So I think that's the another thing we have to understand. Now,
Hmm.
this is something I really loved, so I would love to share this. Did you know that while your vagal nerve is excited or supercharged, the middle ear it shuts off, which means if somebody is super excited or charged up or emotionally charged up, his middle ear stops working. He's not listening to you. So whatever you're saying is falling literally on deaf ears. So it's so important that emotionally you've got to be at a stable place. If that conversation is a negotiation, if that conversation is some kind of deal which can make or break your organization, if that negotiation, if that talk between you and the other person has to come from a emotionally neutral place, you've got to be doing all this that I'm talking of.
Hmm.
How can you avoid this? And if you want to avoid it, okay, no problem, go ahead, do it at the expense of your organization and be ready to be blacklisted. So my idea here is to tell you,
Yeah.
leadership is sheer common sense. It is no
Yeah.
longer an option, it is a necessity. And if there are people
Hmm.
who still think that, okay, being a leader is an option, I'm sorry, that time has passed.
Hmm. True, Pragati. I totally agree. To a very valid discussion that happened on self-reflection, the importance of, where you explained how scientifically, biologically it is important and what's happening within us. That's also important to understand, right? For us. Now, if I shift my questions from am I worthy to how do I become worthy, that this is
Hmm.
not for me to how do I make this for me,
Hmm.
saying that I'm not good enough, how do I become good enough? So just shifting those questions can be
Hmm.
very powerful, and that's very applicable point that you mentioned. And when you spoke about leadership is not an option today, that it should be something that leaders should reflect on why it is being said, because leadership is not an option. And there are a lot of data points, there are a lot of researches that are being done. We even spoke about it in our last conversation last week, that the kind of uh, group of people that are a part of the organization today, the whole mix up is of many generations together, right? And most of it
Correct.
is a very young generation. So emotional stability becomes a very important factor, because as a leader, I don't know if you are a leader yet or not, but if you hold a position where you are responsible for certain people, then you have people from different generations. At a time when you had people from a single generation, maybe you could have just gotten away by being a manager because you had to deal with similar patterns, similar mindsets, similar people. But now you have 20 people and you have them from five different generations. You don't have an option. You have to become a leader. You have to understand them emotionally. You have to connect with them emotionally. Is when they will be able to give their best, is when you will be able to give your best, especially with today's generation, with millennials, generation X, generation Y, generation Z. This generation needs that connect, and we emphasized this in our previous conversations as well. They don't take to a leader who says do this, do this, do this. They'll be like, I have three more options, I'm leaving, I will go somewhere else. So leadership is very, very important in today's times. And the statement that I'll take away from what you said, it's not an option anymore. You don't have a choice that no, I will stick to the way I am. If you stick to the way you are, then it's at the cost of the organization. So the organization has to make a decision: are they ready to bear that cost of you not shifting to becoming a leader?
It's like, saying that, oh, I am like that. So a lot of people say, but this is
Yeah,
how I am. No, you
yeah, मैं
can't
तो ऐसा
say,
ही हूँ. Yeah, I know.
yeah, yeah, this is how I am wired, or this, take me, or drop me, this is how I am. It's one of the most outdated statement anybody can now
Yeah.
put out. Reason being, as you said, we have a workforce which is an assorted workforce, where you have people from all different temperaments, and psychologically we call this as attachment theory. So some people would believe, okay, I'm hearing you, I'm coming from an attachment style where I'm comfortable with myself. For them, you don't have to do much work. There will be people who would again think of, okay, is it possible? So when is it possible,
Mm,
you have to be a different leader to give them enough ideas, yet yes, this is possible. Then there would somebody
mm,
asking you, okay, so am I worthy? Can I even trust you that you would be able to help me on this? So you've got to go
mm,
and wear another hat and think of how I can make this person feel comfortable, and and give that attachment style which that person wants. No, people
mm,
no longer want your attachment style. They want, so as I said, I always say this: don't show any kind of emotion to your people, be it personally or professionally, in a way that you are used to showing it. Show it in
mm.
a way they want to see it.
Wow.
That's where psychology comes in, and that's where your bandwidth as a leader has to stretch a bit. Otherwise,
Mm,
you are good to go. We all call ourselves, oh, we are unique. Yes, we are unique. Yes, we are, absolutely, everybody brings something on the table. But what is important to understand is, so is the other person who is part of your team. Are you
mm,
addressing their uniqueness? Are you even stepping into their shoes and bellies and trying to understand where is their rejection, or where their, either a rejection of an idea or a motivation from what you said? Where is that coming
mm,
from? So a
mm.
good leader has to have empathy. A good leader has to have the power of perception. These two are, absolutely non-negotiable.
Great. And coming back to the question of, how can leaders break these barriers? I think, the points that you mentioned was, one was self-reflection. Understand your patterns, observe the kind of questions you're asking yourself, observe auto suggestion that you mentioned. What are you telling
Correct.
yourself constantly? That's very
Correct.
important, and that factor can itself bring in shift. Second thing that you mentioned is, as you go through this journey of reflection and awareness, you might be able to handle it on your own. If yes, great, but find a peer group, find like-minded people who are looking to make that
Correct.
shift and that transition, because group has its own power, right? So get along with those people, take the journey together, hold each other accountable, share your reflections with each other. And number three that you mentioned is, talk to your people, understand your people. Don't show your emotions of what you are feeling. Try to understand what are they looking for. You feeling angry, somebody is looking for empathy. You're feeling sad, somebody is looking for empowerment. So you don't know what, I heard this from a lot of team members saying that, today my boss came and just blasted me because he was blasted by his boss. Now you can't take that out on your people, saying that, okay, my manager called me to the room today and said this, and I am angry, and I'm going to call my team saying that, this is not that is not what they're looking for. Try to be more reflective about the whole thing, saying that, okay, emotions aside, what happened, what went wrong, what worked, what did not work, how do I go and talk to my people so that it does not repeat. Not being angry at them, empowering them and making them aware of what did not work, what needs to be done differently. I think that's what you're talking about, that
So
see,
if I
you
have to
empower
sum
your
it up,
people.
in a line, I've heard this line and this really connected with me. It says, heal yourself, reflect on what's not working for you. Because if you don't heal yourself, you go around uh, cutting other people who did not make you bleed. So it's that
Yeah,
powerful. Why are you
yeah.
doing that? Because your boss did that. So that is where the whole Weigel research papers on emotional maturity, on emotional stability comes into line. You're
Hmm,
not in an environment where you can throw your weight around. You can be a compulsive or dominant or bullying kind of a leader. Nobody likes them, because
hmm,
nobody wants to be tortured. And who would get up to go to a work like that, where you have somebody dominating you, micromanaging you, putting you down with the labels, right? So
hmm,
and any person operating from that kind of authority is more of control kind of authority. And today is a
Mm,
time when we have to look into servant leadership. Servant leadership means just, it's just the other way around the traditional leadership works, which means your employees are important. It's not just you who matters, it's not just the management which matters. Your employees and your customers are important stakeholders. Are you even doing something about them?
mm,
So I was listening to a podcast, and there they said, so somebody was talking to a CEO, and this CEO, it was asked, "What is your passion?" He says, "My passion is to bring wonderful products for my customers." And then the next question that was asked to him was, when was it that you last met your customers? He said, "I don't meet my customers. My team does." You get the idea?
yeah,
How powerful that is. You
yeah,
don't meet them and you have a vision for them. Hello, I
yeah,
mean, it's a time to wake up. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the whole
yeah.
idea. Leadership is fashionable, but it is sheer work.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm glad that these conversations, see, the reason you and I are talking is because there are people who are looking forward to such conversations, which means that shift is happening. There are people who are like, yes, that, we want to make this shift. We need that support. We want to understand how do we do that because we are looking, and that's such a, that's so motivating and inspiring to see that shift is happening. I think that time is gone where people are like pleading others, saying that, please become a leader. Management does not work. Micromanagement does not work. I think I'm glad that that stage of pleading and telling people, please listen to us is gone. People are listening. The ears are open. So people want to know how do we do it. And it's a great space that we are in today. But what you said earlier also makes a lot of sense that we need to sustain it now. Now, this awareness that has been created, the acceptance, we have gone to the level of acceptance also that has been created of mental well being and understanding the necessity of emotions in leadership and what leadership is and how leadership and management is different. It also doesn't have to be just an 18 months 2 years thing where things get back to normal and we go back to the old style. It's important, and it's on leaders to sustain it, to make it a part of the DNA of culture of the organization, so that the leaders who are built for the future are also emotionally stable and are leaders and not managers. I think that becomes very important. So wonderful conversation, Pragati, and coming back to the commitment that I made to our audience to be more respectful towards them, is to go back to the comments and see if we have some questions. Let's see a
Sure.
couple of quick questions. We
Please.
have Jairaj Shanmugam who says, Prashant Handu, thanks for sharing. Psychological barriers to leadership aside, a great concern that has been bothered me for decades is the issue of leaders being affected by their own power in undesirable ways. What would be your comments in this?
Okay, so I would need more inputs on that, but however, so let me go by this. So it bothers me that leaders, it's the issue of leaders being affected by their own powers in undesired. So look at that. Power could be a big enemy for anybody. And let's not forget, we humans are wired with a good amount of ego in ourselves. And why people vie for power is another, ego satisfying device. So when you say power and undesirable ways, I am yet to understand. If you can throw some more light on what are you, trying to
Implying.
convey, would
Hmm.
be a good idea. However, let me go by little assumption, though I tell people you should not assume. So my assumption says that we have all seen people who get power, and they behave in ways, they start thinking as if they are above all. They start talking in ways which are not good to hear to anybody. They start treating people as things rather than seeing, hearing, or acknowledging them. If this is what you mean by undesirable ways, yes, this happens. And why would that happen? Because that person forgot to work on himself, on his inner core, before he got that power. And I'm also of the opinion that if somebody got power by chance and then he engages in something like this, his days at that powerful position is numbered. I mean, they are
Hmm.
numbered.
Hmm.
Another important thing is positional power is not power at all, because people are becoming intelligent. The team members that you have, they would respect you out of position. What they say behind you is your leadership.
Hmm.
So we have to understand it in that context. What are they saying when you are not there? What is happening? What kind of conversations are going around your behavior, your undesirable ways, whatever, whichever way they are reflecting? So I think that's so important, and your concern is valid, because we do have a lot of people. Prashant just shared the whole idea of the Gallup survey. So there's a whole lot of people who are not even looking at leadership as an option, and they don't know that their days are totally numbered. They've got to be going there sooner than later. And just to kind of seal it up with my last bit, this is the reason, and these people are the reason why a lot of other people think power and undesirable ways of operating in life are kind of a combination, which is not true.
Hmm.
Which is not true.
Very well said, Pragati. And
I put that on
uh,
this.
true. And another point that I would like to add to what you said is, uh, since the awareness and the acceptability of what we were discussing of being a leader is getting higher and bigger and more high on intensity in the recent past, things are definitely changing. But one more thing, if I reflect back on my past of on the days when I was in leadership role, I also remember that that when I took up the leadership role for the very first time, I did not have any transition phase, which means I wasn't given enough support, training, learning emotionally and even practically of what leadership is. I think that gap also needs to be filled. Then you spoke about gestation earlier. You spoke about patience, you spoke about your aim and purpose. So if you are there are people who are in succession planning, there are people who are taking up the leadership role for the first time, or they're moving up to the second, third, fifth level of leadership. Every level comes with a different set of challenges. The need of your people from your role from you at every level is different. So I think uh, emotionally, like all three elements of heart, head and gut that you spoke about, I think
Correct.
people need to be trained on all these three elements for a certain period of time, because they are just being who they have seen their leaders to be, possibly. So for them, that is leadership. For them, leadership is giving orders, getting angry at people, telling them what to do. Feedback means only shouting at people. They don't understand any other ways because they probably haven't had that gestation period that you spoke about earlier. So organizations also need to create that gestation period, that where leaders are getting ready to be who you want them to be. I think that also is what leads that amalgamation that you spoke about, that power and undesirableness seen as one. For us to separate them, I think that gestation will help. I just wanted to add that
And
on
that
as well.
normalization will come over time, Prashant. Now that
Yeah,
that thought process has been there, I'm sure this will be normalized over time as well.
absolutely. And thank you, Jairam, for that question, and thank you for your response, Pragati. One more question that comes our way, which we can take. A last question is, uh, which one should I pick? Why do Sujit Pai says, why do many leaders feel lonely at the top?
Very beautiful question. And I have been lucky enough to work with a couple of them. And okay, so let me put it this way. And these are amazing, amazing guys that I have been able to work. They've been at the top level management, and I'm very impressed with them, reaching out to me and giving me the same set of question that you've given. Why do many leaders feel lonely at the top? Because they have a perception of how the top looks like. And once they reach that top and they realize this is not what I wanted. So many times, I categorically remember one of my mentees. He messaged me early in the morning and he says, so he was promoted to a real good position in the organization, and he messages me and says, "This is amazing. I'll definitely give you a treat, but somehow this doesn't feel as amazing as I thought it would be. Please look at it very carefully." Which, so whenever things are not amazing, the clear answer is what you thought of this thing should be and what this thing actually is, there is a gap. And this gap is how you have seen it, you believed about it, you thought about it, and you possibly you did not pay attention. So that's why people say, please don't go by goals, don't go by I have to reach this level in next 3 years. Think of growth, think of experiences, think of how would you like to grow, what are the experiences you would like to have, and how you would work to go there today. So which means, again, a very purposeful way of reaching there. So maybe
Hmm.
sometimes leaders have not consciously thought down to decide, and their idea of reaching the top was either coming from the outside, or the external factors, the environment, or their own mentors who said, okay, now next turn, go about and do this. So my whole idea is, and I, in the morning itself, I had another message in LinkedIn which was asking me the same question, and which worries me now. It worries me that leaders on the top are feeling slightly empty and lonely. So this question is a very powerful question. Thank you,
Mm,
Mr. Sujit. I must say, if our leaders are, and anybody who's listening to this or might listen to this at a later point, if you're feeling lonely, possibly you have made the switch a lot more faster than it should be.
mm,
Possibly you made some mental image which is more out of your emotion and not from your rational mind.
mm,
How about tweaking it and kind of bringing a congruence from head, heart, and the gut? It takes courage to not go by what is popularly touted as success. It takes courage, what is, to not take from the society, from our social circles, of what is being served. Okay, so you reach there, you become the leader. So loneliness is a clear indicator that that was not your purpose, that was not well thought through idea, and maybe suddenly you are taking your position in a much more serious way. That could also be a reason. Suddenly you want, okay, so now I'm the top and the place is narrow, I don't know what the person is thinking, I'm just going through all the nuances which could be possible, right?
mm,
And to go deeper into it, I think I need to meet those kind of people who are having this kind of emotion,
mm,
because it doesn't happen on a chat show where we talk about it, but I'm giving you all the nuances, right? So one of the nuances could be that they've not thought through it and they've just progressed and kept rising the stair one after the other. That's one. Secondly, if they have not thought through it because they were already fed in enough data points from the society, the culture, the organization, and then they just listen to that rather than listening to the
mm,
voice within.
mm,
Third could be they have focused too much on goals. What is my next, quarter goal, 3-year goal, 5-year goal? They did not focus on whether that goal is my way to grow in a certain manner, to experience in a certain manner, or to
mm,
evolve, as a certain person identity, as I said.
mm,
And
mm,
lastly, could be possible that that goal has is not coming out of your values. Our
mm,
values are like our north star. If your value is not deciding the choices that you're making, you end up feeling not just lonely, you end up feeling sad. You end up feeling, oh, that was it. But it's no big deal. And you feel empty. So
mm.
I guess I have been able to answer this based on whatever couple of mentees I had. And today I'm happy that they're in a very happy space because they shifted the focus from how they see it to how they should see it.
Wow, that's powerful. I hope that answered Sujit's question. A wonderful question, Sujit. A very interesting discussion came out of it. There are
Yes,
few comments that are coming our way. Rajesh says change management to be applied. Indrajit says leadership is forever. Events come and go. Then he says, remember, none of us are indispensable. And he
absolutely.
says, beyond the so-called top. I think his comment was there is life and work beyond the so-called top. That's also a very interesting
Correct.
comment that came
Correct.
our way. So, great, Pragati. I think 1 hour, 23 minutes. As always, I'm consistent at exceeding the timelines and consistent at apologizing for exceeding the timelines. This is something that I am looking to work on. I don't know how and when will it happen. But the conversation was great, very value driven, very deep, some new perspectives that came forward. And I'm sure people who are listening to it right now, thank you so much for being patient and staying with us, and thank you for all the comments and questions. And sorry, the questions that we could not answer, Pragati and I will get back to the comments after the
Sure.
show, and we will answer these questions for sure. And one thing that I would like all of you to think about, or take away from this is, one, yes, please go ahead and watch this conversation again to get some deep reflective points. Second thing is self reflection, that is the key. Being aware of your patterns from the past, being aware of who you are today, being aware of what conversations are you having with yourself. Auto suggestion of what Pragati spoke about. What questions are you asking yourself? Are those questions stopping you from moving forward? Are or are those questions empowering you? So ask yourself that. And last point that I would want to leave you with is, do more research, understand more about this beautiful concept of heart, heart is here. Head, heart, and gut, and how powerful that is in your growth as a person, in your growth as a leader, and your journey as a human being. So, on that thought, Pragati, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time. A wonderful conversation, lot of in depth things that I learned as a person, and the audience would have also. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pragati. And take care, everyone. I'll see you on next Saturday at 11 a.m. with another amazing guest, continuing our journey of bringing in new perspective, new awareness about leadership. Till then, have a wonderful Gandhi Jayanti. Have a great day ahead and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Bye bye.